Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a brutally honest, totally mathematically contextualized reality check for Chung Yuan Christian University, or CYCU. We're going to look at the hard data, strip away the guesswork, and see exactly where every single department in this institution stands in today's fiercely competitive higher education landscape.
So let's establish our baseline right out of the gate. This explainer directly follows our massive breakdown of those 18 undisputed heavyweight institutions. You know the ones. Comprehensive giants like NTU, Chung Yuan University, NYCU, NCKU, Tsinghua, and Central University. Plus the regional pillars like Taiwan Normal, Taipei University, Chongqing, Chongqing, Sun Yat-sen, Tsinghua, National Taipei University of Education, Kaohsiung, and Suzhou. And of course, the medical powerhouses like Taipei Medical, Kaohsiung Medical, and Chongqing. Today, we are putting CYCU squarely under the microscope and mapping its departments against those exact 18 top-tier peers.
But before we start throwing numbers around, it's absolutely crucial you understand how we're calculating popularity here. We aren't just looking at who gets an acceptance letter. This metric is basically a combination of the sequence ranking, which tells us how hard it is to pass the first screening, and the applicant filling rate. That filling rate is the percentage of eligible students who actually prioritize the department on their volunteer list. So it gives us a true, undeniable picture of actual student demand. Now, as we get into the data, you're going to see CYCU with some pretty high sequence numbers. And remember, larger numbers mean you're further back in the pack. You might immediately wonder, wow, is the university really struggling that much? Well, we need to preemptively frame what this data represents so you don't get the wrong idea. CYCU's mere presence in this evaluation actually proves its baseline strength. They're in the ring, trading blows with the absolute top national and medical universities in Taiwan. We have to remember that a ton of regional and other private universities didn't even make the cut to be included in this dataset. So CYCU's numbers are naturally larger simply because they're direct comparables here on the absolute titans of the space.
All right, here's our agenda for today. 1. ECS and traditional engineering. 2. Science and business. 3. Design, humanities, and special ed. 4. Dual degree programs. And 5. The macro drivers and our conclusion. Let's jump right into Section 1, EECS and traditional engineering, what we're calling the AI battleground and industrial anchors. Starting with the EECS domain, you can really see the fierce squeeze coming from the national universities. Electronic engineering sits at 399, and electrical engineering is right there at 400. Now, they are showing some minor positive growth, but they're still trailing the National University of Kaohsiung at 350 and Chongqing University at 362, not to mention vastly trailing giants like NYCU. Interestingly, the broader EECS undergrad program at 492 is actually showing better growth than the specialized tracks, which tells us students prefer getting their foot in the door of the college first before picking a major. But then we have the newly established smart computing program sitting way back at 647. It just hasn't captured that AI magnetism yet.
And guys, we cannot sugarcoat this brutal truth. The entire world is riding a massive, unprecedented AI wave right now, right? But CICU's computer science department actually saw negative growth. Sitting at rank 487, it's falling significantly behind National Chung Yuan University at 197 and even trailing the National University of Kaohsiung at 466. In a private university context, during an AI boom, a drop in CS popularity is a blaring alarm. We can't pretend that isn't a problem. Shifting gears to the traditional engineering departments, it's kind of a mixed bag of robust reputation and some real vulnerabilities. Biomedical engineering is holding steady at 469. Chemical engineering has a distinct split. The material group is leading at 486, biochem is further back at 568, and green energy is lagging at 619. Civil engineering sits at 562, which trails heavyweights like NCKU and NCU. Industrial and systems engineering lands in the middle of the pack at 628 for the engineering group and 676 for management. Meanwhile, environmental engineering is dangerously marginalized down at 630, badly lagging behind Chung Yuan University's 445.
But amidst all that, we have this number, 383. This belongs to CYCU's Mechanical Engineering Department, and it is proudly the university's absolute strongest performer across the board. Thanks to an incredible grassroots industrial reputation, it is holding its own against competing national university engineering programs. It's a massive win.
Okay, moving to Section 2, the science and business domains, where we're seeing some shifting tides in traditional strongholds.
In the pure sciences, it's super clear that tying curriculums to practical applications is a winning strategy. Look at chemistry. The material chemistry group hits 491, literally beating out Sun Yat-sen's biology department, while pure chemistry is further back at 552. Same story in physics. The optoelectronics group is a solid 496, well ahead of pure physics at 580. Applied math sits at 529, trailing Chung Yuan University. The semiconductor undergrad program is still a developing area at 592. Biotech, however, is at 553 and noticeably cooling down, mostly because it struggles to compete with departments that offer guaranteed medical licenses, like dentistry or physical therapy.
Now, the business domain exposes a fiercely competitive red ocean. Finance remains their flagship at an impressive 405, though obviously it trails National Central University's 115. Business administration sees its industry group at 547, but the tech and service groups fall way back to the 650s. International business is at 555. But guys, here is a stark warning sign. Information management is sitting all the way back at 616, trailing Chongqing's 306 during a massive global IT and data boom. That indicates a severe competitive bottleneck.
To really get perspective, we have to do a harsh apples-to-apples comparison with CYCU's classic private rival, Soochow University. CYCU's accounting is at 514, which is significantly lagging behind Soochow's accounting at 372. We'll see the exact same thing with law in just a second. In these traditional brand-heavy domains, distance from Taipei and historical legacy are actively pulling applicants away from CYCU, and ignoring that just delays fixing the problem.
All right, Section 3, Design, Humanities, and Special Ed. And frankly, this group is facing a harsh winter.
Looking across these departments, psychology actually holds its own quite well at 534 as a strong private option. But we have to call out the severe drop in law. Financial law dropped sharply to 563, and tech law is at 607, vastly trailing the National University of Kaohsiung at 335 and Soochow's law at 179. Languages are suffering a national cooling trend across the board, leaving applied foreign languages at 606 and applied Chinese at 669. Most concerning of all, though, is special education, sitting dangerously low at 695. Why? It simply lacks the protective teacher training resources that you'd find in national systems like Taiwan Normal or Tsinghua University of Education.
The design domain is seeing some incredibly sobering trends. Despite historically excellent, industry-wide reputations in areas like architecture, which sits at 583, trailing NCKU's 196, the broader numbers are alarming. Interior design shows minor growth at 602, but commercial design at 661, landscape architecture at 684, and product design way down at 736, they all indicate severe negative growth and a huge contraction in applicant demand.
So, why the sharp decline? These falling ranks are directly tied to macro realities. Generative AI and text-to-image tools are actively threatening traditional, foundational design jobs, and it is terrifying prospective students away. Combine that with a demographic winter where there are just fewer overall students, and that lack of protective national resources for education majors we mentioned, and you literally have a perfect storm hitting these specific departments.
Moving to Section 4, Dual Degree Programs, which are a very high-barrier niche.
Here we have the UW-Madison EECS program at 674, Oxford Brooks Architecture at 725, and Temple Business at 741. Because these three programs basically require you to have very specific study abroad intentions, not to mention a massive financial commitment for tuition, their sequence numbers naturally fall into the late 600s and 700s. It reflects a very narrow, economically conservative applicant pool, though the EECS track does show a little bit of growth.
And finally, Section 5, the macro drivers and our conclusion.
So what's actually driving all this data? 4 big external factors perfectly explain these shifts. First, recent government-private tuition subsidies totally failed to overcome the prestige of national universities. Students still prefer that national title over saving a little money. Second, the AI industry's hiring brand concentration heavily favors the top 4 universities, heavily squeezing private CS departments. Third, the geographic distance from Taipei really hurts in the red ocean of business and law. And finally, generative AI has undoubtedly triggered a massive design winter. So what's the prescription here? To survive this intense magnetism pulling students toward top-tier national schools, SciExQ just cannot afford to rest on its past laurels. The path forward is clear. They have to aggressively pivot and integrate their curriculum with Taiwan's booming local industries. We're talking semiconductor packaging, testing, and smart logistics. Becoming the undeniable direct talent pipeline for their own local backyard is hands down their strongest defense.
I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you navigate this wildly changing landscape of higher education. Facing the sheer magnetism of these top universities, how fast can CYCU actually break through via local industry integration before the demographic winter completely freezes its most vulnerable departments? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining us as we broke down the data, and we will catch you on the next explainer.